Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive developments unfolding in Port Charles this Friday, December 12th. As lives hang in the balance and shocking revelations threaten to destroy everything several families hold dear. The chaos continues to escalate as multiple storylines converge in ways that will leave viewers absolutely breathless. Portia's medical emergency and Britt's crucial role. The tension reaches a fever pitch when Portia Ashford finds herself in the most vulnerable position imaginable. After experiencing what appears to be alarming pregnancy-related discomfort that could signal serious complications with her unborn child, Portia is rushed into medical care and quickly changed into a hospital gown. The situation becomes even more complicated when Dr. Britt Westburn steps in as her attending physician, creating an unexpected dynamic between boss and employee that reverses their usual professional hierarchy. Britt demonstrates remarkable compassion and professionalism as she attempts to soothe Portia's escalating fears about the baby's well-being. It appears that circumstances have conspired to make Britt the only available gynecological obstetrics specialist at this critical moment, and fortunately, she seems genuinely pleased to provide care for her supervisor. With a gentle bedside manner that reveals her true dedication to medicine, Britt reassures the terrified expectant mother, promising to remain by her side throughout the entire ordeal and guaranteeing that everything will turn out fine. This medical crisis might actually provide Portia with an unexpected reprieve from having to confess her intimate encounter with Isaiah to Curtis, at least when it comes to questions about the baby's paternity. The pregnancy scare could potentially eliminate any doubts about who fathered the child, giving Portia one less devastating secret to carry. However, the night she spent with Isaiah might still need to be revealed as an alibi for another reason entirely, especially considering that Curtis currently finds himself in an impossibly tight spot with law enforcement breathing down his neck. Trina's growing concerns about her father. Meanwhile, Trina Robinson experiences a profound crisis of confidence regarding the man she's called father her entire life. In a heart-wrenching conversation with Kai Taylor, she confesses that she's starting to believe she doesn't truly know Curtis Ashford as well as she always assumed she did. This revelation cuts deep for someone who has always viewed her father as a pillar of integrity and moral strength. The entire situation has left Trina completely shaken to her core. She never would have imagined in her wildest nightmares that Curtis would actually attempt to gun down Drew Kane in cold blood, despite understanding that he might have possessed legitimate grievances against the man. After all, Curtis's fury toward Drew was precisely why she and Kai had sneaked into Drew's residence that fateful evening, desperately working to retrieve incriminating evidence against Portia from Drew's personal safe before ultimately destroying it by fire. The weight of these revelations threatens to fundamentally alter Trina's perception of her father. She's grappling with the disturbing possibility that the honorable man she's admired throughout her life might be capable of violence she never thought possible. This internal struggle represents a devastating coming-of-age moment where childhood illusions about parental perfection crumble in the face of harsh reality. Michael and Jacinda's blossoming romance. In a refreshing contrast to the surrounding chaos, Michael Corinthos finds himself experiencing genuine romantic feelings for the first time in what feels like ages. His relationship with Jacinda Bracken continues to deepen and evolve into something that transcends mere convenience or strategic positioning. During an intimate moment between them, Michael makes a point of clarifying that spending time with Jacinda has nothing whatsoever to do with establishing an alibi or maintaining appearances for any external observers. The sincerity in Michael's words suggests he's genuinely falling for Jacinda, and there are encouraging signs that she reciprocates these developing feelings. After enduring multiple devastating heartbreaks and betrayals in his romantic past, Michael desperately needs this relationship to be built on authentic connection rather than manipulation or ulterior motives. The universe owes him at least one relationship free from the drama and pain that has characterized so many of his previous partnerships. What makes this situation even more promising is how well Jacinda appears to be connecting with Michael's children. while baby Amelia Corinthos remains too young to form meaningful opinions about her father's romantic interests. Young Wiley Corinthos has clearly taken a shine to Jacinda, demonstrating genuine affection toward her. For any single parent navigating the dating world, having your children approve of and bond with your romantic partner represents an invaluable blessing, even when that person will never replace their biological mother in their hearts. The fact that neither Wiley nor Amelia want to live with Drew Kane creates additional space for Jacinda to integrate herself into their family unit without competing against the children's desires to be with their other parent. This dynamic gives Michael and Jacinda's relationship room to grow organically without the complications that would arise if the children were torn between households or harbored resentment about changes to their living arrangements. Nina and Willow's tense confrontation. The drama intensifies when Nina Reeves rushes to Alexis Davis's residence to deliver news that could fundamentally alter the trajectory of multiple ongoing investigations. She bursts in to inform Willow Kane, Alexis, and Drew, who happens to be present at that exact moment that criminal charges against Drew are being dropped as a direct result of Curtis Ashford's recent arrest. This development should theoretically lift an enormous burden from Drew's shoulders and restore some semblance of normalcy to their chaotic lives. However, Willow's expression remains clouded with doubt and suspicion, even as Nina insists that Curtis being charged changes absolutely everything about their situation. Her skepticism proves well-founded given the incomplete nature of the charges currently filed against Curtis. While law enforcement has taken him into custody, he hasn't yet been formally charged with murder itself. At this stage, investigators have only charged him with obstruction of justice while they continue examining the evidence surrounding his whereabouts and activities on the night in question, particularly his mysterious meeting with the notorious Selena Wu. The authorities clearly suspect something far more sinister transpired during that encounter, but they're proceeding carefully to build an airtight case before moving forward with more serious charges. This procedural caution leaves everyone involved in a state of anxious limbo, uncertain whether Curtis will ultimately face murder charges or whether the investigation will reveal a less damning explanation for his actions and choices that evening. Curtis reaches out to Jordan for help. Inside the holding cells adjacent to the Port Charles Police Department, Curtis makes the strategic decision to summon his ex-wife Jordan Ashford rather than immediately contacting a defense attorney. When she arrives, he tells her with desperate urgency that he believes they can mitigate the disaster currently engulfing his life, but only if she's willing to provide assistance that likely skirts ethical boundaries. His plan appears to hinge on Jordan's unique access to resources and information that could potentially exonerate him or at least cast reasonable doubt on the prosecution's case. Curtis specifically needs Jordan to visit the Savoy nightclub and obtain financial wire transfer records that could prove crucial to his defense, assuming, of course, that he was actually telling her the complete truth about what transpired. If Curtis genuinely did cancel the wire transfer to Selena Wu that would have funded a hit on Drew Kane's life, then those banking records could potentially clear him of the most serious charges. The existence of a cancellation would demonstrate that while he may have considered taking drastic action in a moment of rage, he ultimately pulled back from the brink before crossing that final line into criminal conspiracy. However, if Curtis never actually canceled that payment and the money did indeed reach Selena Wu's organization, then he's undeniably culpable for at minimum soliciting murder for hire, regardless of whether the actual assassination attempt was ever carried out. In that scenario, the wire records would only serve to further incriminate him, rather than provide the exoneration he desperately seeks. Jordan finds herself facing an impossible moral dilemma that tests every principle she's held dear throughout her law enforcement career. Curtis is essentially asking his ex-wife to potentially tamper with evidence or help him cover up a serious crime, a request that becomes even more troubling given that she was absolutely livid when she first learned he'd even entertained the possibility of hiring someone to kill Drew. Her righteous anger at his consideration of violence should theoretically make her refuse this request without hesitation. The situation becomes even more complicated when considering that Curtis arguably should have used his one permitted phone call from custody to contact a skilled criminal defense attorney, rather than summoning his ex-wife to engage in potentially illegal activity on his behalf. However, Jordan being Jordan, she'll probably take care of securing legal representation for him as well. Unable to completely abandon someone who once meant everything to her despite her profound disappointment in his recent choices and actions, the question remains whether her loyalty will extend to actively helping him evade justice, or whether she'll convince him to come clean and face whatever consequences await him with integrity intact. Next, we will learn about the issue that has Port Charles absolutely reeling as Carly executes what might be the most dangerous gambit of her entire life. What we're witnessing right now is a masterclass in calculated revenge, wrapped in romance, deception layered upon deception, and a mother's fury unleashed with surgical precision. The woman is literally sheltering an international fugitive in her backyard shed while sharing her bed with the very intelligence operative tasked with hunting that same fugitive down. This isn't just bold, this is borderline insanity. And yet somehow it's the most Carly thing we've seen in years. The dangerous game Carly is playing. Let's break down the absolute madness of what Carly is currently orchestrating, because this scheme operates on so many different levels of deception that it makes your head spin just thinking about it. She's providing sanctuary to Valentin Casadini, a wanted criminal who escaped custody and is being hunted by multiple international agencies. Simultaneously, she's maintaining an intimate romantic relationship with Jack Brennan, the director of the WSB, the World Security Bureau, which is the very organization leading the worldwide manhunt for Valentin. And here's where it gets even more twisted. Brennan has absolutely no idea that the woman he's fallen deeply in love with is actively sabotaging his most important case while plotting his complete and total destruction. This represents Carly operating at peak performance levels we haven't witnessed since she orchestrated that legendary breakout from Ferncliff's psychiatric facility. Remember when she stormed into that institution with nothing but pure determination and maternal rage? This current situation has that same energy, except the stakes have been amplified exponentially. She's not just breaking someone out of a mental health facility anymore, she's playing a high-stakes game of espionage against one of the world's most powerful intelligence agencies. And she's doing it completely alone, without her usual safety nets and backup plans. Jason Morgan isn't lurking in the shadows ready to extract her when everything goes wrong. Sonny Corinthos doesn't have a contingency plan mapped out or resources on standby. Carly has isolated herself completely in this endeavor, operating as a solo agent without the protective infrastructure that saved her countless times before. She's flying blind, relying purely on her instincts, her intelligence, and her absolute refusal to let anyone harm her children without facing devastating consequences. Jack Brennan's fatal miscalculation. Jack Brennan honestly believes he's found something real and genuine with Carly. When he looks at her across a candlelit dinner, or holds her hand during quiet moments at her property, he sees a future he never thought possible for himself. This is a man who carries darkness embedded deep in his soul, whose past is littered with classified operations and morally ambiguous decisions that haunt him during sleepless nights. His personnel file is probably redacted to hell, filled with black ops missions and covert activities that would make normal civilians recoil in horror. But when he's with Carly, all those defensive walls come tumbling down. He lets himself be vulnerable in ways that would horrify his WSB colleagues who know him only as an ice-cold operative incapable of emotional compromise. He's exposed, raw, genuinely invested in building something meaningful with this woman, and she's weaponizing every single moment of that emotional intimacy to systematically dismantle his career, reputation, and possibly his freedom. The brilliant irony is that Carly is using the exact same skill set that made Brennan successful in his field manipulation, strategic deception, exploiting vulnerabilities, maintaining multiple cover stories simultaneously. She's basically running a counterintelligence operation against a counterintelligence expert, and so far, she's winning. The hunter has become the hunted, Except he doesn't even realize he's in the crosshairs yet. The catalyst that started everything. This wasn't some impulsive Carly decision made in a moment of anger or passion. This is calculated vengeance with a very specific origin point, and understanding the catalyst is crucial to comprehending why Carly is willing to risk literally everything: her freedom, her reputation, potentially her life. Jack Brennan made the catastrophic error of recruiting Josslyn Jax into the WSB without informing Carly first. He used his intimate access to Carly, the trust she had begun placing in him, the relationship they were building, to approach her daughter and bring Josslyn into an extremely dangerous world of international espionage. For Carly, that crosses the one absolute, inviolable, sacred boundary that exists in her universe. You don't endanger her children. You don't manipulate her family. You don't put her babies, regardless of how grown they are, in the crosshairs of international criminals, terrorist organizations, or deadly covert operations. Brennan thought he could maintain separate compartments in his life, keeping his professional obligations distinct from his personal relationships. What a spectacular, career-ending miscalculation that turned out to be. He fundamentally misunderstood who he was dealing with. Carly isn't some civilian girlfriend who can be managed or controlled or kept in the dark about matters deemed above her clearance level. She's a force of nature who has toppled mob organizations, outsmarted veteran criminals, and survived situations that would have destroyed lesser people. Brennan looked at her and saw a hotel owner, a businesswoman, someone outside his world. He failed to recognize the street-smart strategist who's been playing dangerous games since before he probably joined the intelligence community. The unlikely alliance with Valentin Casadini appearing at Carly's door wasn't some random desperate move by a fugitive grasping at straws. That man is a trained intelligence operative himself, a world-class profiler who can read people and situations with frightening accuracy. He knew exactly what he was doing when he chose Carly's property as his hiding place. The entire town knows that Carly despises the Casadinis with a burning passion that goes back decades. That long-standing public hatred makes her estate literally the last place anyone would think to search for a Casadini fugitive. It's strategic brilliance disguised as desperate irony. Valentin gambled that Carly's hatred for Brennan's manipulation of Josslyn would outweigh her loathing for his family name. And he was absolutely correct. He came bearing gifts, specifically classified intelligence about Brennan's connections to Pikeman, the shadowy organization that's been operating in Port Charles's underworld. That information represents potential career-ending, possibly prison-worthy evidence against the WSB director. Suddenly you have an evil genius who built and lost an empire teaming up with a protective mother who will burn the world down to keep her children safe. Together, they form the most dangerous alliance currently operating in Port Charles, and nobody even knows it exists yet. They're planning in that shed, strategizing about how to use Pikeman intelligence to destroy Brennan's career before he discovers what they're doing. It's a ticking time bomb counting down to an explosion that will shatter multiple lives. Josslyn's growing suspicions. Here's where the situation becomes exponentially more complicated and devastating. Josslyn Jax is transforming into exactly what the WSB trained her to become: a perceptive, analytical operative who notices details that normal people overlook. Brennan personally cultivated these skills in her, teaching her to read body language, identify inconsistencies, recognize when people are hiding something. And now those exact abilities are turning against both Brennan and Carly simultaneously. During her recent visit to her mother's house, Josslyn picked up on multiple red flags that her newly trained instincts screamed were significant. She watched Carly behave erratically near the glass doors that faced the shed, noticing nervous glances and defensive positioning that suggested her mother was protecting or concealing something in that direction. She discovered a first aid kit hastily hidden behind couch cushions, not in the bathroom medicine cabinet where it should be, but stuffed out of sight in the living room like someone had needed it urgently, and then concealed evidence of its use. Every alarm bell her WSB training installed is ringing at maximum volume. Josslyn knows something is fundamentally wrong at her mother's property. She just doesn't realize yet that she's investigating the very fugitive her organization desperately needs to capture. She has no idea that the man she reports to Jack Brennan is romantically involved with the woman harboring their target. The interconnected web of deception is so complex that when she finally unravels it, the revelation might break her. The impossible choice ahead. When Josslyn inevitably pieces together the complete picture and given her training and natural intelligence, that discovery is absolutely inevitable. She'll face the most impossible decision of her young life. Does she fulfill her duty as a WSB operative and report Valentin's location, knowing that doing so will send her own mother to federal prison for harboring a fugitive? Does she choose loyalty to family over loyalty to the agency, protecting Carly while destroying her own career and possibly facing criminal charges herself for obstruction? And then there's the Brennan factor. When she learns that her mentor, her boss, the man who recruited her, has been romantically involved with her mother while hunting a fugitive Carly was actively hiding. How does she process that betrayal? Does she confront Brennan about manipulating her entire family? Does she realize that her recruitment itself might have been part of some larger game being played between these two people? The emotional devastation this situation will cause Josslyn cannot be overstated. She's going to feel betrayed by her mother, used by her boss, and trapped in a moral nightmare where every choice leads to catastrophic consequences for people she loves or institutions she's committed to serving. The net closing in. Time is running out for Carly's elaborate deception faster than she probably realizes. Multiple investigative forces are converging on the Spencer estate from different directions, each following their own leads and suspicions. Detective Dante Falconeri is conducting official police inquiries that keep circling closer to uncomfortable questions about Carly's recent activities and the property's unusual security patterns. Nathan West has been asking questions around town, following threads that haven't quite connected yet, but are getting dangerously close to revealing the truth. Jack Brennan himself is starting to notice inconsistencies in Carly's behavior, moments where she's distracted, protective of certain areas of her property, evasive about her schedule and activities. His professional training makes him instinctively catalog these anomalies, even if his emotional investment keeps him from pursuing them too aggressively. Meanwhile, Josslyn's suspicions grow sharper with each passing day as her analytical skills improve. She's watching her mother with trained eyes now, cataloging deceptions she would have missed months ago. The convergence of all these investigative forces closing in simultaneously makes prolonged concealment essentially impossible. Something has to break, and soon. The ultimate gamble. Carly is betting everything she has, her freedom, her relationship with her daughter, her business, potentially her actual life, on a single desperate calculation. She believes that Valentin's intelligence about Brennan's pikeman connections is explosive enough to neutralize the WSB director before he uncovers her deception. If she wins this gamble, Josslyn gets extracted from the WSB's dangerous world and Brennan's career burns to ashes. Justice, in Carly's mind, for using her daughter without permission. But if she loses this bet, the consequences are truly catastrophic. Federal charges for harboring a fugitive typically carry sentences ranging from 10 to 20 years in prison. That's not some minimum security white-collar facility, that's real, hard federal time. And there's another factor that makes this gamble even more terrifying. Brennan's repeatedly referenced darkness and the mysterious past that haunts him. What exactly does a man like that, a man with unlimited intelligence resources and a history of operating in moral gray zones, do when he discovers the woman he loves has been systematically betraying him? The explosion is coming. Not if, but when. And when it detonates, the blast radius is going to devastate multiple families, destroy careers, shatter relationships, and potentially send people to prison. This is General Hospital operating at peak dramatic intensity, secret alliances built on mutual desperation, romantic entanglements weaponized for revenge, and a mother willing to sacrifice absolutely everything to protect her child from danger she believes was unjustly created. The only question remaining is who survives the fallout when this whole powder keg finally ignites.